The courtroom buzzed with an electric energy as lawyers shuffled through their documents, spectators exchanged quiet murmurs, and the faint echo of a gavel resonated from a neighboring chamber. Judge Elena Herrera occupied the bench, her eyes unwavering and exuding professionalism. It was yet another day filled with new challenges and intriguing mysteries to unravel. That was the impression she held at the very least. The bailiff announced the case with a commanding presence. The case involved the state of Louisiana. Jaime Alvarez. Elena adjusted her position on the seat, her fingers gently placed on the smooth surface of the polished oak bench. She cast a fleeting look at the papers laid out before her. She had engaged in confrontation, theft, and defiance against law enforcement. A well-known pang of disappointment nestled within her chest, yet another spirit ensnared in the web of the system, she mused. As the defendant entered the room, everything around her shifted dramatically. The figure before her, bound at both wrists and ankles, was someone she recognized all too well. He was known as Jaime Alvarez. She was deeply in love with her beloved Jimmy. Her throat constricted as a torrent of memories rushed to the forefront. During the sun-drenched afternoons, they whizzed through the dusty streets of Hammond, Louisiana, on their bicycles, embracing the thrill of the race. The enchanting late-night conversations took place beneath the sprawling branches of the magnolia tree in her backyard. In their youth, they exchanged vows to stand by each other no matter what. Yet, the figure before her was no longer the boy etched in her memory. His shoulders curved inward, and his face bore the intricate map of countless struggles over the years, yet his eyes, those profound and expressive ones, were undeniably distinct. Elena's hold on the gavel wavered. For the very first time in her journey, she found herself pausing. The room felt as though it were contracting, the walls closing in around her as she grappled with the unfathomable. Jimmy gazed upward, his face a canvas of astonishment intertwined with acceptance. A spark of recognition danced in his eyes, yet he swiftly averted his gaze, his head dipping ever so slightly. The courtroom remained silent. Elena summoned her courage to find her voice. "Mr. Alvarez, you are facing charges of assault and robbery. What is your response?" Jimmy's voice had a gritty quality, rendering it nearly unrecognizable. "I plead not guilty, Your Honor." Her heart raced with intensity. She yearned to halt the chaos, to seek the truth with fervor. What had transpired with him? In what ways had their journeys taken such different turns? Yet, her position as a judge required a sense of calm and steadiness. "Go ahead," she urged, her voice more composed than the turmoil inside her. As the prosecutor launched into their opening statements, Elena's thoughts swirled with a whirlwind of possibilities. This was no ordinary case. This was none other than Jimmy. In a twist of fate, she found herself on a quest to untangle the threads of her past from the vibrant tapestry of her present, all before the sands of time slipped away. The courtroom faded into the background as Elena's thoughts wandered back to an era far removed from her black robes and the gavel she now held. She and Jimmy had been raised in contrasting corners of Hammond, Louisiana, separated not by miles but by the silent codes of their divided community. Her family's residence was a quaint one-story dwelling adorned with a charming white picket fence, whereas Jimmy's family resided in a time-worn house at the far end of a rustic dirt road. Enveloped by sprawling fields, their friendship had been a delightful oddity. She recalled the moment their paths first intertwined. They had met by chance at the edge of a babbling creek, venturing beyond the familiar boundaries of her own backyard. Jimmy found himself in a fishing adventure, with his line ensnared in the lush reeds. Her offer of assistance blossomed into a tapestry of hidden escapades and intertwined aspirations that spanned across the years. "Helena," he had once whispered, sprawled on the grass beside her, gazing up at the stars. "Have you ever pondered the idea of departing from this location? Are we truly venturing out? Are we heading to a place where we can enjoy each other's company without any strange looks?" In that moment she had chuckled, playfully dismissing the notion. However, Jimmy was being completely serious. From a young age, he perceived the world in its raw form, recognizing it as a space that often failed to accommodate individuals like himself. Amidst the murmurs, the furtive looks, and the blatant disapproval from all quarters, their connection flourished and grew stronger. Yet the pressure lingered, an unyielding weight that neither could escape. And then, on a fateful day, everything came to a close. During the summer leading up to high school, Elena's father discovered them nestled together on the porch. His voice cut through the air, crisp and commanding, leaving no room for doubt. "Elena, please come inside at once." She paused, her eyes darting to Jimmy, who remained motionless, caught in a moment of uncertainty. "Go on," he had murmured softly, his tone laced with a sense of acceptance. "I'll catch you later." Yet they had not truly crossed paths once more. Her father strictly prohibited her from approaching Jimmy, and shortly thereafter, Jimmy's family relocated. Elena immersed herself in her studies, her aspirations propelling her well beyond the confines of Hammond. She embarked on her journey to law school, pursuing her aspirations of justice and fairness, yet the memory of the boy who had shown her the true essence of courage remained etched in her heart. As she perched on the bench, her mind drifted to thoughts of Jimmy. Pondering the twists of fate that had unfolded since she stepped into that house and sealed the chapter on their friendship, his record revealed a collection of arrests for minor offenses such as petty theft and loitering, nothing that suggested a propensity for violence. However, one must question the extent to which a mere few lines on a rap sheet can truly capture a person's entire existence. The sharpness of the prosecutor's voice jolted her into the here and now. He was painting a vivid picture of the supposed crime. Jimmy found himself facing accusations of having assaulted a store clerk amidst a robbery that unfolded at a convenience store in Baton Rouge. The clerk endured some minor injuries, and while the cash register lay emptied, its contents vanished. Jimmy was collected just a few blocks down, the cash reportedly still in his hands. Elena observed Jimmy intently while the prosecutor delivered their speech. He stood with a slouched posture, hands clasped before him, yet his expression remained a mystery, shrouded in ambiguity. Did he truly go through with it? Could there be additional layers to the narrative beyond what the prosecution presented? The courtroom took a pause for a lunch break, allowing Elena a precious opportunity to collect her thoughts. Upon her return to the chambers, her assistant, Sophia, stepped forward, her expression tinged with uncertainty. "Your Honor, Hayes, are you feeling all right?" There was a hint of... Sophia inquired, her attention wandering. Elena paused, contemplating her next move. Is it time for her to share her thoughts with Sophia? Could acknowledging her prior knowledge of the defendant be considered unprofessional? Rather, she gently shook her head. "I'm doing well. There's an abundance swirling in my thoughts." Yet she was far from fine. How could she possibly find peace when the past she had so profoundly concealed loomed just a few feet away, waiting for her verdict? The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial resumed, packed with eager spectators. Amidst the flurry of activity, reporters busily jotted down notes, the clerk rustled through a mountain of papers, and the prosecutor, a keen-eyed individual known as Ricardo Rick Padilla, stood poised to present his case. "Esteemed members of the jury," Padilla commenced, his voice resonating with conviction, "this case delves into the realm of violence. A man strolled into a convenience store and, without any warning, launched an unprovoked assault on an unsuspecting clerk before making off with the cash from the register. The evidence will reveal that Jimmy Alvarez is indeed guilty of this crime." Elena sensed a tightness coiling in her stomach. The prosecutor's tone carried a cold precision, devoid of warmth, treating Jimmy as merely a name on a list, stripped of any personal connection. She glanced at Jimmy, who had his eyes fixed on the table before him. With a confident demeanor, the defense attorney, Isabel Isa Flores, stood to deliver her opening statement. Though still in her youth, she exuded confidence, her voice resonating powerfully throughout the room. The prosecution attempts to portray this case as straightforward, but it is far from it. From the very beginning, my client, Jaime Jimmy Alvarez, has steadfastly upheld his innocence. We will reveal that this narrative has deeper layers, and the assumptions formed on the night of the arrest crumble when examined closely. The initial witness took the stand, a store clerk who had been on duty during the night of the event. He recounted the moment when a man resembling Jimmy stepped into the store, engaged in a heated exchange with the cashier, and then made a sudden leap over the counter. His testimony was intricate, yet there was an air of familiarity that suggested it had been practiced. Isabel's cross-examination was precise and incisive. "Mr. Chambers, did you mention that the person who assaulted the clerk was wearing a red hoodie?" "Indeed," the witness responded. "Were you able to see his face in detail?" "Not quite. It was shrouded in darkness, and he had his hood drawn up." Isabel nodded thoughtfully, her footsteps creating a gentle rhythm as she paced back and forth. "Are you suggesting that you were unable to clearly pinpoint the person responsible for the assault?" "Actually, that's not quite the case, but—" "No further questions," Isabel declared, interrupting him with a decisive tone. Elena observed Jimmy subtly adjust in his seat, his shoulders aligning as if the interaction had sparked a flicker of optimism within him. A captivating piece of evidence emerged in the form of a surveillance video captured from the store. The video was hazy and dimly illuminated, revealing a silhouette clad in a red hoodie making its way into the store. The prosecution contended that the individual captured in the video was indeed Jimmy. However, the poor quality rendered it challenging to identify any distinguishing characteristics. As the video unfolded, Elena immersed herself in its details with keen focus. "Is it really possible that this is Jimmy?" The figure darted swiftly, snatching at the counter before vanishing from view. The footage concluded suddenly, creating a disquieting void in the storyline. Jimmy's defense hinged on a carefully crafted alibi. He asserted that he was making his way home from a friend's place when the robbery occurred. The friend, however, hesitated to come forward, expressing concerns about potential backlash from the community. Isabel passionately contended that the absence of a willing witness did not diminish Jimmy's innocence. However, the jury's expressions subtly suggested a cloud of doubt lingered in the air. As the trial unfolded, Elena sensed the heavy burden of her role bearing down on her. She was intended to embody neutrality, a beacon of justice, yet how could she maintain that stance when each passing moment echoed with memories of their shared childhood? The boy who had once been her dearest companion had transformed into a man battling for his liberation, and she found herself in the pivotal role of deciding his destiny. As the court session came to a close, Elena remained at the bench, her fingers delicately exploring the contours of the gavel. She longed to engage with Jimmy, to inquire directly about the events that had unfolded, yet she understood that it was beyond her reach. Any interaction beyond the courtroom could put the case and her career at significant risk. As she observed Jimmy being led away from the room in chains, Elena's determination began to falter. She had always held a deep faith in the justice system, in its power to uncover the truth. Yet for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Could the truth ever be something it could genuinely seize? The courtroom hummed with a soft symphony of whispers as the trial approached a crucial turning point. As the defense stepped into the spotlight, Isabel Flores eagerly introduced her first pivotal witness, Officer Daniel Harris, the very officer who made the arrest. Elena leaned in, her gaze sharpening with intensity. This is the moment where the fissures, if they exist, could start to reveal themselves. Officer Harris, a robust figure with a rugged presence, stepped up to the stand. Isabel moved toward him with a serene intention. Isabel began, "Officer Harris, were you the one who took my client into custody?" "Indeed," he responded, his tone sharp and concise. "In your report, you mentioned that Mr. Alvarez was strolling 2 blocks away from the robbery scene when you apprehended him. Is that accurate?"
"Absolutely."
"What made you think he might be the suspect?" Harris adjusted his position in the chair. He fit the description perfectly. A black male in his mid-40s, clad in dark attire. Isabel's eyebrows arched ever so slightly. "Does the attire exhibit shades of darkness?" However, the video captured the individual wearing a vibrant red hoodie. During your search of Mr. Alvarez, did you happen to come across a red hoodie in his belongings? Harris paused, contemplating his next move. While it's true he didn't, he certainly had the option to let it go. Isabel drew nearer, her curiosity piqued. Could it really have happened? Did you or any other officer explore the nearby area in search of this alleged hoodie? Harris's jaw clenched with intensity. Unfortunately, we were pressed for time. He was swiftly taken into custody. Isabel continued her journey with determination. Just to clarify, you apprehended my client based on an ambiguous description, lacking any tangible evidence connecting him to the scene? The officer's silence resonated more profoundly than any spoken words could convey. Elena's eyes danced over the jury, where several members shared hesitant looks, their uncertainty palpable in the air. Isabel had more to offer. Officer Harris, do you remember if Mr. Alvarez mentioned anything during his arrest? He raised his voice in defiance, declaring his innocence. Have you thought about exploring his claim further, or did you jump to conclusions based only on how he looks? Harris's face blossomed with a deep shade of crimson. I adhered to the established guidelines. Protocol, Isabel echoed, her tone tinged with doubt and curiosity. There are no additional inquiries, Your Honor. The courtroom hummed with energy once more as Harris descended from the stand, his credibility clearly in disarray. Elena's heart raced with intensity. This had evolved into something far beyond a mere trial. It was a moment of awakening not only for Jimmy but for a system that appeared all too ready to pass judgment on him. The defense's forthcoming action took everyone by surprise. Isabel brought forth a skilled expert witness, a forensic analyst who meticulously examined the surveillance footage. The analyst elaborated that, considering the height and physique of the person in the video, there was no conclusive method to ascertain whether it was indeed Jimmy. Moreover, the alteration of the timestamp on the footage invites intriguing questions regarding its trustworthiness. The prosecutor sought to brush aside the testimony as mere speculation, yet the jury seemed visibly perturbed. A whisper of uncertainty slipped into the room, and Elena could sense its heavy presence. As the sun began to set, Jimmy found himself presented with the chance to share his story and speak for himself. Despite Isabel's cautionary words about the potential dangers, Jimmy remained resolute in his decision. He rose to his feet, the gentle sound of chains softly chiming as he made his way toward the stand. His voice, soft yet powerful, resonated with an unfiltered honesty. I've stumbled along my journey, Jimmy started, looking directly at the jury. I've wandered down the wrong paths, placed my faith in the unworthy. Yet this is not my doing. As I strolled home that evening, lost in my own thoughts, I was unexpectedly approached by the police. Without a moment's hesitation, they simply concluded that I was the perfect match. His voice wavered just a bit as he pressed on. I've been battling my entire existence, striving to be recognized for more than the assumptions others make about me. But this... I'm feeling quite weary. I just want the truth to have meaning. Elena felt a constriction in her throat as Jimmy settled back into his seat. His words lingered, a heartfelt appeal not merely for justice, but for the essence of humanity itself. She cast a fleeting look at the jury, their expressions a tapestry of emotions, doubt, empathy, and uncertainty weaving together in a complex dance. This was the moment. The truth had transcended the boundaries of mere evidence and testimonies. It was a clash of moral dilemmas, a fierce contest against the burdens of bias and preconceived notions. Elena understood that her purpose extended beyond merely enforcing the law. It was to interpret it in a manner that genuinely embodied justice. The last day of the trial arrived, thick with a sense of eager expectation. The prosecutor presented the closing arguments with meticulous clarity. The prosecutor emphasized the circumstantial evidence, encouraging the jury to have faith in the integrity of the system's process. Isabel, however, urged the jury to look deeper, to recognize the gaps in the case and the very essence of the man standing before them. Elena absorbed every word, her expression calm and collected while her thoughts whirled with vibrant energy. Her role was distinctly defined. Though she couldn't influence the jury, she was determined to have the last say if their verdict allowed for any ambiguity. The weight of upholding justice pressed down on her with tremendous intensity. After hours of thoughtful consideration, the jury engaged in deep deliberation. The courtroom ebbed and flowed with the movement of people, some stretching their legs while others engaged in hushed conversations, creating a tapestry of murmurs and shifting bodies. Jimmy sat in stillness, his hands intertwined firmly before him. Since the very first day of the trial, he had avoided Elena's gaze, and she found it difficult to hold that against him. What words could she conjure to transform any of this into something better? At last, the bailiff proclaimed that the jury had come to a decision. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as the foreperson rose, a sheet of paper quivering in her grasp. In the matter of the state of Louisiana against Jaime Jimmy Alvarez, we encounter the defendant. The silence stretched on, a weighty stillness that felt almost tangible. Innocent of all charges. The atmosphere in the room surged with a symphony of gasps, whispers, and a scattering of jubilant cheers. With a decisive tap of her gavel, Elena brought the room back to a harmonious calm. Jimmy's shoulders drooped, as though a heavy burden had been released, yet his expression stayed enigmatic. He had triumphed in his quest for freedom, yet it was evident that this hard-won victory bore a heavy price. Elena stood before the court, her voice unwavering and filled with purpose. "The verdict has been delivered. Mr. Alvarez, you are now at liberty to depart. The court proceedings have come to a temporary halt." As the courtroom began to clear, Elena remained, her gaze fixed on Jimmy as he meticulously signed his release paperwork. For a fleeting instant, she imagined he would walk away in silence, yet then he pivoted and drew closer to her. The room was almost devoid of life, with only a handful of clerks meticulously organizing their surroundings and Sophia diligently collecting files. Jimmy paused just a few steps away from the bench, his face a mask of caution. "You don't owe me anything," he said softly, "but I'm curious to know. What held you back from speaking up?" "You were familiar with me." Elena sensed a constriction in her throat, the words struggling to escape. "Due to the fact that I was unable to do that, I needed to ensure fairness. Had I spoken up, it could have put the case at risk." Jimmy observed her intently, his expression a blend of pain and empathy. He echoed the word, "fair." "Ah, that's the essence of it, Elena. Fairness has always eluded the world." "This isn't meant for individuals like myself." She nodded thoughtfully, her eyes drifting down to the gleaming surface of the bench. "Indeed, you are correct. I often find myself reflecting on how much more I could have accomplished during that time. I find myself longing for the opportunity to have contributed even further at this moment." With a soft sigh, Jimmy felt the tension in his posture begin to melt away, if only just a little. In our youthful innocence, we were blissfully unaware of the world around us. But you're aware now, aren't you? "I do," Elena declared, her voice resolute. "I sincerely apologize." With a subtle nod, Jimmy pivoted and strode away, his posture upright as he vanished through the courthouse doors. Elena found herself in the solitude of the vacant courtroom, the heaviness of his words enveloping her like a thick fog. She had championed the law, yet the trial had unveiled a more profound reality. Justice transcended mere verdicts and evidence. It was a narrative woven from the intricate tapestry of lives, influenced by vast systems beyond the grasp of any single individual. For Elena, it was a moment of revelation. It was a gentle reminder that her role extended beyond mere authority, serving as a vibrant platform for transformation. As she departed the courtroom that evening, The setting sun painted the courthouse steps with elongated shadows, and Elena whispered a quiet promise to herself. Despite the unchangeable nature of the past, her determination to create a future filled with genuine opportunities for justice was unwavering. It might be challenging, perhaps even beyond her reach, but she owed it to Jimmy and to herself to make the attempt.